Welcome back to Respect the Process. I am Kelly Hunter, and I am alongside the voice of Alabama, Chris Stewart. And this is the first opportunity, really, that we've had a chance to speak to you since we found out last week that you will now be the official voice of Alabama football starting in the 2024 season. Congratulations.
Thank you. It has been overwhelming. More text messages than I could possibly imagine in a 48-hour period.
When we texted, once you found this out, the next day I think you said, you're like, I have 300 unanswered texts. And then
It got to 600. So it was amazing and flattering. And the best part, and I mean this sincerely, is the joy that so many people that have known me for whatever period of time in my life, to see the enjoyment that you and others have gotten over me having this opportunity. And it's humbling. It's something I'm extremely grateful for, and I'm excited. I mean, it's not the first time I've done this. I mean, technically, I had the position last year for the road games, and had been told at that time that this was mine going forward in that position. Eli would do home games, and I would be doing the road games as it was, and that this is the way it would be going forward. So I fully anticipated to be doing play-by-play again this year, but did not know until last week that it would be fully mine and would have the opportunity to be from a full-time standpoint, the next in line of incredible line. Eli, obviously, but before that, Paul Kennedy, and before that, John Forney, men that I've all had the privilege of knowing and have great respect for, and will just do my best to uphold the standard that they've set, because it's a high standard, and it's the neatest thing to have listened to each of those guys, to get to know each of them. In the case of Eli, to work with him, and to now be given the honor and privilege of being in that spot is an unbelievable opportunity.
You are the consummate professional, and there are things that I can say that maybe you can't, but how had that working relationship been over the past year with you splitting that job?
Yeah. We really didn't cross paths that much. I would be at home games and I would see him, and we're fine.
Yeah.
We're fine. Obviously, Eli wanted to do all the games.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I wanted to do all the games as well. The first thing, and Eli knew this, knows this still, I hope, I had been unable to work for a season of football and half a season of basketball myself.
Yeah.
So I understood the personal frustration of not being able to do what you've done for so long. I know how much the job means to Eli. And the year that I filled in for him, I was very clear that I was filling in. I was not my job. I was filling in for him. Then the decision was made a year later to have us both broadcast games, and that was not ideal, frankly, for either one of us. But it was the task we were given. I think we handled it professionally and handled it well. I'm very comfortable with how I did on my side in terms of dealing with it, not just doing the job itself. And we got through that. Wish it had lasted one more game.
Yeah.
Could have sent Coach out with a national championship, but that's not the way it went. And I did know that they were going to make the announcement and do what was done the day that it was, until about an hour before the press release came out. So, again, it's one of those things, you control what you can control.
Right.
And all I can control is extreme amount of gratitude and pride and happiness that if there is an opening for that position, that it was given to me, and very, very grateful that I can do the job still myself,
Right.
with things that I went through, and that I would be chosen to be next. It's very special.
Well, and there are two sides to this, and I think you can feel both things. That yes, a voice that we've listened to for approximately, as we say, 35 years of Alabama football is leaving this position, and we've heard his side of things. And there's also the other side that we can be excited for you too. And I think that's gotten a little lost over the past week because we've heard from Eli expressing his displeasure at the way things went down. This is my opinion and my opinion only, but it was time. I felt that it was time that he had. He even said in one of the many interviews that he did, saying that his job description, or I guess in reviewing his performance, had not been where they wanted it. But I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for this opportunity for you, because this truly is one of those once-in-a-lifetime gigs that, when you first started this, and I don't know, many times throughout, at least during my early career, when people would ask me, what are your goals? And oftentimes I'd be like, I've already exceeded the goal that I ever thought that I would achieve in this position or what I had been hired to do.
Right.
And if you had told, when you're graduating from college, that someday you would ascend to this position, at least I would be like, that's amazing, but you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
And I've known you since you, I was trying to think, about 25 years is how long I've known you. And you're a guy who's always, you will do the job, and you will do it regardless of it is doing sidelines at a high school football game or calling Alabama basketball. You will do it with the greatest integrity possible.
I appreciate that. I really do.
Because you have done a lot of different jobs to get to where you are today.
It's, and I have.
Is there a microphone? Will there be people there? All right, I'll call it.
Sure.
Let me know. Even if there's not a microphone, I'll speak really loud.
I'll just enunciate.
No,
it's very unusual. Remind me again, you told me, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Atlanta.
Okay. So you're not far from home. But
this
you're
job
still
to me
a couple of hours away.
Is the equivalent of if someday they were to call me and say, Kelly, we need you to call Atlanta Braves baseball.
Yeah.
And that would that would be the opening of heaven's gates for me.
So as a child, I listened to Alabama football games. Listened to John Forney, Doug Layton.
Which is how because oftentimes these games were not televised.
No, you only got, back then you could only have 2 games a year televised during the regular season. NCAA rule. You could only be on television twice at that time. So radio was an even more important medium then than it is now in some ways. So listen to John all the time, and I'm still not comfortable all these years later, even though he insisted that I call him John, and was privileged to know him and to lean on him for advice and get critique from him on my work early in my career. The same with Paul Kennedy and with Eli as well. But I remember as a little boy hearing John call games. And then as a teenager, Paul Kennedy with, bless you, Mike Shula, the comeback against Georgia. Get to the boundary, Greg, which was the play before Van Tiffin's kick. And just the emotion and the excitement with that. I was telling somebody this story today. I think it was Mike Deberly when I was on with him this morning. I said the first time I was ever on the airwaves with Eli Gold, I was 14 years old. He was the sports director for WERC. TC and John Ed were doing their show. He had a trivia question, giving away lunch for 2 at Maubie's. And I was the
It's getting better and better.
I was the first caller that knew that the correct name for a soccer field was a pitch. And so I won lunch for two at Mauby's, but I had to answer that on air to Eli. And that was the first time that I was on the air with Eli Gold. I was 14 years old. To get to know him, then to get to work with him, and to be chosen to follow him. And I'm not replacing him, I'm following him. It is an unbelievable honor. And again, it's Alabama. That stands on its own. And the reason I ask about you being in Atlanta, I could do what I'm doing at maybe a handful of other places around the country. There are a few other jobs that, play-by-play wise, especially in college, that would be comparable. I'm certainly not going to say exceed, but would be comparable for fan base and what the radio announcer position means. But it would not mean nearly as much if it were somewhere else because, again, having grown up here, listened as a child, listened as a teenager, listened as an adult, to have friends that have literally known me my entire life share their joy and excitement over this is extremely special. Family members, teachers, coaches, people that I've been involved with in my time at other schools, Birmingham Southern, UAB, my alma mater where I first started, Montevallo. So many opportunities, different sports, hearing from former Alabama football players that I've gotten to know over the years, but also basketball, baseball guys at BSC, all over the place. I've just been extremely fortunate that I've had so many people impact my life in different ways and have been a part of helping me get to this point and seeing them take the joy in it as well and some ownership, and they should, because I don't believe that anybody gets anywhere without some degree of assistance from somebody else. And if I write a book, it's going to be tied in with dominoes. If you stack dominoes, one falls into another and falls into another. And I can point to so many different things in my life and my career where that's happened. Now, sometimes this, if you've ever stacked the dominoes, sometimes you miss. And you just got to pick up and knock the next one down and try to start all over again. And I've done that before in different ways. But I've had a bunch of dominoes in my life, and I'm grateful for all of them.
So did you know prior to this announcement that you would be taking over or that you would have a part in next season doing the radio?
Well, I knew I was going to have a part in next season because we were told by Greg last year, or I say last year, I'm trying to remember. Yes, it would have been 23. Before the 23 season, I think it was spring or summer, that this is what it was going to look like going forward. So I had no plans to do any less than what I was already doing.
But when the announcement was made last week, was that really the first?
That was the first time that I knew everything was done.
Yeah.
So,
would you categorize? And I know things are tenuous right now. In the past, had you and Eli, were y'all friends, or would you describe it as colleagues, coworkers, friends, or?
I think all of the above.
Okay.
Eli came to see me when I was in the hospital. I went to see Eli when he was in the hospital. I always tried to be a supportive teammate. We worked literally shoulder to shoulder in the booth the last year before he got sick and missed the entire 22 season.
22. And
I filled in for him. But we had worked that year and I think the year previously when I was the broadcast host and in the role that Roger Hoover has now. And I tried to be for him what Roger was for me. I'm seeing it through another set. I'm seeing it through play-by-play guys' eyes. So if I see something, I may make a note, or I had an open mic, I may say it not from an analyst standpoint, but from things that I may see as a play-by-play guy. Right. And I feel like we really got to a pretty good rhythm with that towards the end of that season, with me in that position. Again, never wanting to step over Eli, not just because it's Eli, but because I understand on radio, the play-by-play person is not more important than the analyst. It's just that if I don't say, as the play-by-play announcer, what's going on and set up everything, the analysis will have no context.
Right.
So in that regard, it's different from television play-by-play. And I guess in order of setting the table, it may have a little more importance. But again, it's not about me. It's about what the job requires in order for everybody else to be able to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
So I never wanted to get in the way. I simply wanted to try and maybe supplement and add to what we were doing. And I feel like I did that and hope that I did that and enjoyed working with Eli. He's told me before. He told me before the first game last year. We'd had a phone call literally at the stadium before the game. Told me he loved me. Told him I loved him. Yeah. And I do, and I'm grateful to him for the kindness that he's shown me. Grateful for the standard that he set, and it's because it's Alabama, but it's also because of him that I want to make sure I keep that standard where people are accustomed to.
But as of today, have you spoken to him since last week when the announcement was made?
We've not had a chance, but we both had a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say that, again, I've watched you work from whatever job whoever's going to ask you to please, would you come and call this game, call baseball, basketball, softball, football, you name it. You are truly a professional. You are so good at what you do. You are just as genuine off camera and off mic as you are on. You are a kind and just wonderful human being, and I'm so excited that you have this opportunity.
Really kind. I appreciate all that. I don't deserve it, but I
No,
appreciate it.
You do. And I'm was already looking forward to next season because we have a lot to look forward to. We have a lot. It's gonna be a lot of new faces.
It will be.
Some name tags.
It will be. Yeah.
But okay, want to move to last week. Coach Saban was in town for the Nick Saban Legacy Awards.
Yeah.
And just watching him speak to the media, that is the loosest and funniest I think I've ever seen Nick Saban.
You know, I've told you this, but when I was with him for a few minutes before the introduction of Coach DeBoer at his press conference, I had about 15 minutes with Coach, and you could tell that there's a lot, to not have to wonder. The man works so tirelessly. If there was something that did not relate to football, unless it was family or something where he had scheduled the time to enjoy, take a relax.
5 minutes of entertainment.
But I mean, that's one of the reasons, all successful people, or most successful people, that's what they do. It's a gift I don't have. It's a trait I don't have. But their ability to go, okay, I'm going to do this, and this is where I'm going to schedule time to relax and to enjoy myself. But I'm going to be working otherwise. You could tell in that brief interaction, that 10, 15 minutes that I had with him, that there was a lot off of him. Yeah. And to not have to stress and strain about, is somebody else outworking me?
Right.
Because that was the thing. The guy was incredibly talented, but nobody ever outworked him. He was amazing. And to see him be able to take a deep breath and relax was really nice. Now, again, there's things he's going to want to do. I think I may have told you this. I was swapping texts with Stanford Steve. Reese knows this. So when Reese and I were talking, we didn't really have to go this route, but I was kidding with Stanford Steve. I said, you better show it ready to work. I said, because I said, this dude's going to want to win. I said, if it's TV, he's going to want to win, and he's going to expect everybody around him to want to win. So you better be on your A game. He said, man, I can't wait. He said, I think it's going to be awesome to have a chance to be teammates with a guy. I said, absolutely the way you ought to feel.
Well, and he said he was excited about the ESPN gig, a way for him to stay involved in the game and have an impact on college football. And he went on to make some comments during the award portion itself, where he said talking about the state of the game and saying what do you think Coach Bryant would think, or what do you think Coach Bowden, if he were still with us, would think if they saw college football. But what I thought was interesting was he ended his comments with saying he wishes to help stay around the game to keep it in check. And I think these are all ways of setting up that he wants to somehow still be involved in college football to start to put, as we keep saying, some parameters.
Right.
Or some form of rules or structure that we don't have right now.
You're exactly right. But here's the thing. He couldn't fully do that while he was coaching.
No, absolutely
because
not.
Because everybody, whenever he spoke up for things that he didn't think were right, people would, I say that, people, I mean need would be a little leery because they're thinking, oh, he just wants an edge.
Yeah.
Do we, maybe we need to.
Yeah.
Right. And he was being honest, whether it was some aspects of recruiting, whether it was the hurry up, no huddle, whether it was NIL, whatever it was, he would when they were talking about making a rule, he would say, is this, or had gone through with a rule, he would say, is this really what we want college football to be? Mm-hmm. And if the answer came back yes, he'd say, hold my beer.
Yeah.
And he'd go do it better than they would.
Right.
Even though he may not think it was best for the game, if that's what the rules are, I'm going to make sure
maximize.
I'm not going to let somebody beat me. I may not agree with the rules, but I'm going to play by those rules, and I'm going to beat other people. I think it's one of the reasons that Dabo Swinney has slid a little bit with Clemson.
Right, I agree.
In addition to the fact that it's so tough to maintain that, is that he's got some resistance about doing it. And I don't fault him for that. I'm simply saying that there's nothing wrong with having those principles. But if the rules are going to be this, you've either got to find a way to beat them, just and somehow stay to what you believe, or you're going to have to play the game by the rules as they are and play along, hold your nose, grit your teeth, whatever you have to do, which is, again, what Nick Saban did so incredibly well. And I do think by him having a voice and not having, yes, he's going to always be tied to Alabama, but he won't be
the current head of the program.
The current head coach. He may still have an office in the stadium, but he's not the head coach of the program. And I think there will be more of first of all, ESPN wants him to be vocal because that's what you're paid to be. Mm-hmm. People are going to listen to him because it's him. But I think it's going to have quite an impact. And we could do a whole lot worse in the game than if we had Reese, Kirk, and Nick Saban sitting in a room and going, the three of them trying to sort all this out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you could do a lot worse.
Well, and we've said this time and time again that if someone is going to head up some sort of team, whatever you're going to call it, commission, he is one of the few people that I think almost everyone in college football will listen to because he does not half-ass anything. Like if he comes up with some sort of guideline or some sort of steps that we're going to pursue, it is well thought out, it is well researched. And that's what Nick Saban is going to be behind. And I think, and again, it has nothing to do with preserving Alabama necessarily. I think it has to do entirely with preserving the integrity of college football.
Right.
Because I feel like, in my opinion, he sees that slipping away.
Yeah. He made the statement, what was it? I don't know if it was NIL or something tied to that maybe 2 years ago.
And I understand change is inevitable.
Yeah, it is.
Things are always going to evolve and change, but
you're changing what and who you are at the core.
The integrity of the sport is being compromised.
Right. And he made the statement then of, people think I'm worried because it's going to impact us winning or losing. No, it's not. He goes, Alabama's going to be fine. Alabama's going to have, we're going to have plenty of people that want to get behind and get on board and help and do this, whatever it takes. He goes, but not everybody's got that opportunity, and you're going to have even further separation between, as many have used it, the haves and the have-nots. He goes, and I just don't think it's good for the game as a whole. And he's right.
Yeah.
Alabama was fine. Alabama is fine. But you got a whole, and it's why the NCAA, I'm not going to say it's going to go away entirely, but the Power Five, I think, you dropped
I dropped my pen. It's okay. You said what you said was just.
It's right. I have that impact.
Yep.
I think the Power Five or four are going to, and that's true. That may just be the Power Two, are going to do their own thing and let everybody else, y'all didn't. It's ridiculous. And again, I've been a part of this. Yes, I'm at Alabama now, but I went to college at an NAIA school. Mm-hmm. By the loosest of interpretations, I was an NAIA student athlete as a walk-on golfer at Montevallo. So by definition, I was.
What hole did you walk on to?
Yeah, I walked on and then walked off because didn't have greens feet. But I've been through it. I did Birmingham Southern when they were NAIA, and very briefly, front end of their Division I deal. I worked with UAB when they were at the front end of their 1A football status. I haven't always been with the elite program in college football and college athletics. I've seen it at all different levels. Was around and did some work with Samford, not on their radio crew, but I understand different levels.
Yeah,
is
you
my
get
point.
around. We get it.
I get around. Yeah. I have been involved with different levels. Alabama shouldn't be telling Birmingham Southern or Montevallo or Samford what they should be doing and how they should be doing it, because they're not involved in exactly the same entity, certainly from a football standpoint. At the same time, those schools and schools comparable shouldn't be telling Alabama in schools comparable how they should be doing things. It's two very different
without question.
levels.
Yeah.
They need to have their own governing bodies, their own rules. They've got different visions, and both are important on their campuses.
Yeah.
Both are extremely important on their campuses. But you shouldn't take what's best on the Alabama campus and force it on Birmingham Southern, and I keep saying Montevallo because that was my school, and it is an NCAA school now. But you shouldn't force that on them any more than Alabama should have what's important on those campuses forced on them.
Yeah.
You can be under, well, they've tried for years to be under one umbrella, and they were with the NCAA, but it's not the same game.
No.
It's not the same interest, and there's nothing wrong with what the interest that both have. But you need to do what's best for your interest here. They need to do what's best for their interest there, and that's not under the same umbrella anymore.
No.
That's not working. It's not. It's never really worked, and it's not going to work now or in the future.
Amen.
Thank you.
Preach on,
Okay.
Brother Chris.
Thank you.
Also last week, Coach Kalen DeBoer was interviewed by Ryan Fowler on Tide 100.9. Nothing earth-shattering. It was interesting to hear Coach just kind of laying out the spring. Talked a little bit about his offensive philosophy, that multiples, a lot of motion. It's going to look different from week to week, depending on the opponent. And he said the defense, he's going to be a little bit more hands-on this year because he needs to be. He said he's sitting in on just about every meeting on both sides of the ball. But, just interesting hearing about, okay, this is the spring installation plan.
Right.
And that he doesn't plan on changing the A-Day format. A lot of this, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You don't need to walk in and necessarily put your fingerprints on everything.
Sure.
If what was going well was going well.
Right. And a wise man, because he's had different jobs, different situations, and I haven't broken down each of the prior ones before Washington, but again, he was a guy who was a coach at an NAIA school, won championships there. Washington was a proud program that was in a bad spot, and he fixed it, obviously.
Yeah.
Left it in great shape, and at the same time, he understands he's inheriting something that's in great shape. Doesn't need much. There are things that can always be improved on. Nick Saban would have pointed to that for his team and his program and said there's things we need to improve on. That's not insulting to the previous year's people
Right.
in any way. It's what you do. If you have expectations and you have if you're honest with yourself, there's things that always can be improved upon. So identifying that and taking what they've got in year one and hopefully not slipping, but just trying to figure out which end is up in some ways is going to be a challenge. But I think they're going to be probably not outside the top 5 in the standings. And I think he's going to be just fine. You're going to get challenged early, but that's part of it. That is part of it, and I think they'll be up for it.
Yeah, I'm excited because the next round is going to be broadcasting their show on Wednesday from 9 to noon inside the Malmore building, which is very remarkable because this is something new that Coach Saban probably would not have allowed, but Coach DeBoer is allowing them. They're going to have both Nick Sheridan as well as Kane Womack, and Coach DeBoer will also be with them this Wednesday on the next round. So I'm looking forward to watching, listening, and just kind of getting to know the cast of characters.
Look, Nick Saban's way was incredibly successful for Nick Saban.
Exactly. His way was his way.
And there are others that do it a different way. Here's the thing. You can't by any way fault Nick Saban's way. It led to the most successful formula. But as we have seen with guys who have gone and left his staff and tried to emulate that other places, just because you try to do it similar vein doesn't mean you're going to have the same result.
No.
You got to be yourself.
Well, and also some of that works for him when you look at what he has achieved. When the more the guy wins, the more you're like, well, clearly whatever he's doing is the right way. But he can say that, and it doesn't necessarily mean another coach can say it.
No doubt. But again, while the levels are different, and we won't know who Kalen DeBoer is from a legacy standpoint till years from now, the man has won at every level he's been.
Right.
He's won every place he's been. He's won championships. He's won championship games. He's been able to rebuild situations. He played in the same playoff that Nick Saban did this past year.
Yep.
He knows how to coach.
Yep.
And Alabama's got a tremendous selection in the role as head football coach, and you got to let him build it.
He's got a lot of toys in the toy box, I'll tell you that.
He does indeed, but he also clearly knows how to play with them because they won a bunch of games the last couple of years at Washington.
Okay, now we got some questions to answer because what the hell is going on with defense? Because if I told you Alabama goes to Rupp and scores 95.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Kalen DeBoer's defense.
No,
like,
we're moving. No, Coach DeBoer's off the hook for now.
What is this defense of
now
which you speak?
We're moving on to basketball because, holy crap, that game, at halftime you're thinking Alabama has been able to overcome deficits like this in the past.
Was it 14, 16 at the half?
About. I think it was like 16-ish, yeah. And then the second half, it was dismal.
Picked up right where they left off.
And Coach Oats was the first one to say, this team did not play well. We did not play defense. I mean, when you see that Kentucky has scored 100 and we still have like 6 some odd minutes to play, you're like, they may get to 125. I don't know.
They did set a lot of records with that number, and Bama still finished with, 90-something themselves?
95, yeah, but
it was over, and that was frustrating because
you were there.
He called Nate had talked about it before we ever got on the plane to go to Lexington that, you're going to face a wounded team. You're going to face a ticked-off group. You got to be tougher, more physical. And Bama did not do that. Had a decent start to the ball game.
Yeah. I mean, they matched. It was punch for punch in the beginning of the first half.
And then just did not sustain the intensity on the defensive end. And when they missed a couple of shots offensively, let it affect the defensive end. And look, they've lost 3 games in the league by a combined 60 points. When they do something, they do it right. When they do something wrong, they do it right. If you're going to go that route.
It's the little girl with the curl. And when she was good, she was very, very good. And when she was bad, she was horrid. I've heard that a lot growing up.
As you played probably with a curl in your hair.
Yeah.
So anyway, this game against Ole Miss in Oxford on Wednesday night is massive.
I don't want to build it up as it almost is a must-win, because you feel like Alabama's got to go out there and prove that we can win on the road. We are a team that I'm not going to say deserve, because you earn a conference title. But I think they've got to earn it by beating Ole Miss on Wednesday night.
I think they've got their hands full. And I think in order to get a reset and to maintain confidence in them, here's the reality on the math. You can lose the game, turn around and beat Tennessee, and you're still in first place.
Yeah.
Assuming Tennessee wins their midweek game. So
because we got 4 games left. We've got Ole Miss on Wednesday in Oxford. Saturday, we got Tennessee coming to Coleman Coliseum.
Correct.
Then next week, they go to Gainesville.
On Tuesday night.
And then the final game is against Arkansas.
Correct.
Back home in Coleman Coliseum.
Correct.
So 2-2.
You mean home and road, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All those you could go 0-4. Or you could go 4-0. Because you're going to get Arkansas's best, I think, unless they just tank. Unless they tank, and Bama's already clinched. But if all they've got left to play for is to spoil Alabama's title,
it's plenty for some teams.
That is plenty for a Eric Musselman coach team.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to watch. But Saturday's huge with game day being there for the first time for basketball. It will be only that big, though, if Alabama gets it done against Ole Miss. Again, there's still going to be importance, but in terms of the atmosphere, the electricity, all of those things, it will be impacted greatly based on what happens on Wednesday night in Oxford at the Pavilion. Well,
and out of curiosity, I think most of us just want to see what team shows up, because, and I hate that when we're talking today, the overtime win against Florida is kind of blighted, because most people are talking about their performance or lack thereof when they played Kentucky.
That's
because
fair.
Last Wednesday night, that was a great win.
Oh, yeah.
I loved your call. It was a lot of fun to listen to. It was a lot of fun to watch. And I think people were looking for that kind of fight.
Yeah. I'm ready to hopefully see Reitzel back.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's well enough, and the head injury that he's had is healed to where he can play, and play at the level that he had been playing before that took place.
Sustained a concussion in practice. Has been unable to play the past 2 games.
Head injury is what they've said. I'm just going to go with what they've said. I've got to go get on a plane with those
got his
people,
bell rung.
So I'm gonna
got it bumped his noggin, that kind of stuff.
I'm just making sure I say what's been said so that I can get on the plane again. But he is somebody they really missed against Florida and badly missed against Kentucky, because not only is Luttrell a really good shooter, very good defender as well. They needed that, and I think his presence will be important. Mohamed Wagué didn't have the suspension for a game. That had nothing to do with Kentucky, although it's good to have another body,
right?
Especially one that's his size, and you're at the point now where you need all hands on deck.
Yeah,
you're going down the stretch for 2 weeks left, and you got a title very much in your grasp. It helps to have those available to go get it.
And obviously this is, one of the hypotheticals, but it's not out of the realm that they could go 0-4
No.
in these next, and then you wonder how does that impact then the NCAA tournament?
Well, seeding, it would at that
Yeah.
point. But I don't. If you're going to ask me which one I think is more likely to happen, I would tell you 4-0 over 0-4. I don't know that either one of those is realistic.
Right.
I'm just saying that I can see this team winning all four more than I could losing all four. But that's a dangerous game Wednesday night.
Absolutely, and not only is
One
it
thing that helps, Alan Flanagan apparently not available. I'm not sure about that definitively, but if he's not, because of the incident he was involved in
Right,
Saturday,
right.
if he's not involved, and I don't know for sure,
it would be
but
likely that he would not be in the game.
It would be definitely beneficial to not have maybe the most dynamic player on their team available,
Not only is it a dangerous game, it's a late game, 8:00
which is dangerous.
Wednesday
as well.
night
Yeah.
in Oxford, taking on Ole Miss, and then this coming Saturday, as we said, game day will be there for the first time
Yeah.
at Coleman Coliseum. Are you going to go down
I
early?
think I am.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go early because not just for the other stuff, but I'd like to see Reese
Yeah.
and see those guys. So that would be fun.
Take your son.
There's a good chance. It is his birthday Saturday.
Oh, nice.
There's
Even
a
better.
good chance that game day and Top Golf are in their
That's a nice little Saturday.
their future.
Is it still a 7:00 tip that night against Tennessee, or have they moved it?
It is actually, yes,
Okay.
you're right. It
Okay.
is 7:00.
I was going to say, I had pulled that up, but sometimes
Nope, you're right.
Okay.
It is. That's exactly right.
Sometimes they change things, but again, I can't be remiss without congratulating you. I'm
you.
so happy. I'm so proud. Proud adjacent of just this tremendous opportunity that you have in front of you.
Thanks. It is. That's what it is. It's an
Yeah.
unbelievable opportunity. Thankful to have it. Fortunate to have it, and appreciate you and so many others that have been so kind about that.
As Mike
sharing
DeBoer,
it.
Mike DeBoer would always say, a tremendous challenge and a tremendous opportunity
It's great.
in front of us every single
Every
week,
single
sitting
week.
in that. Didn't matter the team. It is a tremendous challenge and a tremendous opportunity. And we can always find you at chrisstewart.online.
Very nice. Very nicely done. Twitter at CStewartX, C Stewart Sports.
And then Chris Stewart online, chrisstewart.online. I even have it written out, chrisstewart.online. You can always find him. Watch and listen, obviously, every day, but watch and listen on Wednesday in particular in the next round. We'll be broadcasting from the Malmore building from 9 to 12. Their usual show time, but you can always catch them on demand. They'll have Nick Sheridan, Kane Womack, and Kaylin DeBoer. So can't miss radio, TV, streaming, whatever.
Streaming,
whatever we call it these days.
That's right. No radio
And
streaming.
now we cannot leave without an official from
got
the
no-
voice of Alabama.
Roll Tide.
For Chris Stewart, I am Kelly Hunter. We got to thank Scott Forrester for making all of this possible from behind the glass. Be sure and tune in to watch the next round, Disrupt the Media, Double Down Media, everything we've got here. So we are grateful for seeing you this week, and we'll see you next week. Take care.